What if someone told you that something as simple as ejaculating more often might lower your risk of prostate cancer? At first, it sounds almost too surprising to be true, but the science behind this idea is fascinating and it's worth unpacking. Prostate cancer is no small matter. In fact, it affects 1 in 8 men over the course of their lifetime, which means millions of men around the world are at risk. When you start looking at the numbers, they quickly become sobering. Imagine a group of 100 friends, fathers, brothers, or colleagues. Statistically, at least a dozen of them will develop this disease at some point. That's not an abstract figure, that's a very real, very personal risk. And if something as natural as ejaculation can influence those odds, then it's a topic that deserves serious attention. The prostate is a wall, not sized gland sitting just below the bladder, and its main role is to produce the fluid that nourishes and protects sperm during ejaculation. This fluid accumulates inside the gland in between releases. Now, here's where things get interesting. Scientists have long wondered whether keeping that fluid stagnant inside the prostate for long stretches of time might increase the chances of harmful changes in the cells, possibly setting the stage for cancer. This is where the prostate stagnation hypothesis comes in. The theory suggests that when semen and prostate fluid aren't regularly expelled, potentially carcinogenic substances can build up and irritate the prostate, making it more vulnerable over time. But that's not the only angle. Researchers also speculate that frequent ejaculation may lower psychological stress, and since chronic stress is linked with the development of many diseases, including cancer, this could be another protective factor. There's also a possibility that regular release helps maintain a healthy prostate microbiome and supports normal cell function, especially when it comes to important processes like zinc and citrate metabolism. Both are crucial for keeping prostate cells healthy and resilient against abnormal growth. The question is, does science back this up, or is it just an intriguing theory? Well, one of the most eye-opening studies came out of a large survey that began in 1992, where over 40 men were asked detailed questions about their health, lifestyle, and sexual habits. Researchers followed these men for nearly 2 decades, until 2010, because prostate cancer is notoriously slow growing and you need long-term data to see meaningful results. These men reported on how often they ejaculated per month during different periods of their life, such as in their 20s, 40s, and beyond. Alongside this, they also provided information about their physical activity, smoking habits, diet, use of supplements, and even stressful life events like divorce. This way, researchers could filter out as many other factors as possible and isolate whether ejaculation frequency really played a role. What they found was fascinating. Younger men, particularly those in their 20s, reported ejaculating much more frequently than men in their 40s. About 57% of men in their 20s said they ejaculated at least 13 times a month or more, while by their 40s, only about 32% maintained that frequency. That decline is natural with age, but it gave researchers a useful comparison. When the data was analyzed, one striking pattern emerged. Men who ejaculated 21 times or more per month had a 20% lower risk of developing low-risk prostate cancer compared to men who ejaculated only 4 to 7 times per month. Now, let's pause here. 21 times a month is a lot. That's about 5 times a week. It might sound excessive for some men, but for others, it might fit comfortably into their lifestyle. What's important to highlight is that the reduction in risk applied mainly to low-risk prostate cancers. This did not hold true for more aggressive, high-risk cancers that spread quickly. Still, a 20% reduction is significant when you're talking about a disease that affects 1 in 8 men. So, what does this mean for the average man? Should everyone suddenly aim to ejaculate over 20 times a month in hopes of avoiding prostate cancer? The answer isn't so straightforward. This study, published in 2016, was extremely well designed and controlled for many external variables, but no single study can give us absolute certainty. The men who ejaculated more often might also be men who were more active, had healthier diets, or were more physically fit. In other words, ejaculation frequency could be a reflection of an overall healthier lifestyle rather than the sole protective factor. That being said, the study still gives us an important takeaway. Ejaculation is not harmful, and in fact, it might be beneficial for prostate health. If you're someone who enjoys sex or masturbation frequently, you don't need to feel guilty or worried that it's damaging your body. On the contrary, the evidence suggests that it could be one of the ways your body naturally protects itself. But should men force themselves to meet a quota of 21 times a month? Probably not. Anything done to the point of stress, exhaustion, or disruption of your normal routine isn't healthy. Balance is key. Another interesting angle is how this information is received publicly. When the study resurfaced in news articles a few years ago, headlines boiled it down to a catchy, oversimplified message. Want to avoid prostate cancer? Ejaculate more. While it's a great attention grabber, it doesn't tell the whole story. Yes, the research points toward a protective link, but the deeper message is about lifestyle, health balance, and the complexity of cancer risk factors. Prostate cancer isn't caused by a single habit or prevented by one simple action. Genetics, age, diet, exercise, stress, and environmental exposures all play a role. Ejaculation is just one piece of the puzzle. Still, it's empowering to think that something natural and pleasurable might carry health benefits. It flips the cultural script many men grew up with, where masturbation or frequent sex was often stigmatized or considered shameful. Here we have evidence suggesting that, far from being harmful, ejaculation may actually support long-term wellness. That's a message worth paying attention to, especially for men who might be silently worrying about their health as they age. At the end of the day, the science isn't telling you to turn your life upside down just to ejaculate more. What it does tell you is that your sexual habits are more closely tied to your health than you might have realized. If you're already active in that department, keep it up without guilt. If you're less frequent, don't panic. There are many other ways to protect prostate health, from staying active to eating a balanced diet rich in vegetables, to avoiding smoking and excessive processed meats. But what you shouldn't do is ignore the possibility that ejaculation might be part of the bigger health picture. Prostate cancer is a slow, growing disease, but it's also one that can creep up silently. Preventive habits matter, and if ejaculation plays even a small role in lowering risk, then it's worth appreciating as more than just a physical release. It's a natural function tied to a web of biological processes that keep the prostate clear, balanced, and functioning optimally. And if that means that a little more sexual activity might be doing your future self a favor, well, that's a perspective shift worth holding on to. So perhaps the real takeaway is this. Instead of asking whether men should aim for a magic number of ejaculations per month, the better question is how men can build a lifestyle where sex, health, and wellness support one another naturally. Frequent ejaculation may be part of that equation, but it doesn't have to become an obligation. It can simply be embraced as another dimension of caring for your body, the same way you might go for a jog, eat your vegetables, or get a good night's sleep. And if you ever needed one more reason not to feel ashamed of a healthy sex life, this might be it.